Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to our 18 invoice collection cost strategies and best practices for getting paid faster webinar. My name is Michael Introvertolo, and I'm the marketing manager at Solution Systems. Today, we are very fortunate to have James Mallory with us from Collect Anytime, B2B Technologies. He's also going to be conducting this webinar. So with that being said, I'm going to switch the presenter and pass it on over to James, and he can get started and we can watch and have some fun. Let me know when you get it, James.
I've got it.
All right.
And you guys should be able to see my slide deck now.
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for the introduction there. And we're going to dig right into the topic of the day. We're going to talk a little bit about some strategies that you can implement to get paid faster. Talk about some things you can do on your own and areas where you may want to add on our product or something similar to be a little more effective. We'll talk about that stuff at the end. So the format we're going to go through today, the title was 18 steps or 18 tips to basically manage your collection calls. And this is what we're going to go through. We're going to start by talking about really the first 3 steps, which is doing some research. I am a big fan of knowing what we want to accomplish before we set out to do those tasks. So we're going to talk about some of the research elements here. We're going to go into goal setting, right? Once we understand kind of where we're at, setting some goals on what we want to accomplish, efficiencies we want to gain. We're then going to move into strategies that you can implement. We'll talk specifically about some tips on call scripts and how to handle calls. And then we're going to wrap it up with the last 3 points, and that's really understanding the metrics to understand if did all these things that we've set up and put into place actually benefit us. So we'll start out with tip number 1 here, step number 1, and that's identifying who our customers are. Every business that we deal with is a little different. We deal with some companies that sell product and service to other businesses in a business environment. We have other customers that are selling to consumers, and as you probably are aware, collecting money from consumers is very different in many respects to collecting from businesses. So you need to really understand what that mix is within your customer base, because that's going to really determine some of the strategies you implement. For example, if you're on the business-to-consumer side, you need to worry about skip tracing. Your contact, leaves, you don't have a valid address for them, you need to hunt them down. Where in a business-to-business space, it's very difficult for a company just to get up and move, so skip tracing is less important. What kind of products or services do these companies buy from you? You're going to be able to change your workflow depending on some of these nuances. If I have certain customers that are always buying high-ticket items and they're typically late on payment, I might want to call them more frequently. If I'm selling services to customers and they're typically smaller dollar invoices, then maybe I don't need to call them as frequently. Maybe I can use email as a strategy. Industry is going to really play a key role here. We work with companies that sell products and services to a variety of industries, and certain industries are better than others when it comes to making payments on time. I'll give you some examples. If you are, say, a manufacturer and you're selling to distributors, distributors are pretty good. They're probably in the average. So if you're extending net 30 terms to your distribution customers, they're probably paying you, in and around, let's say, 50 to 60 days. So not great, but not terrible. But if you're in the construction industry, your customers are in the construction industry. Construction tends to be an industry with a higher DSO, so those companies are going to take a lot longer historically to pay you. So you need to understand the industry that your customers are in, and again, you can tailor your collection strategies really to meet the needs of your unique business and customer portfolio. Geography is also important, especially when you're making collection calls. I may be selling product to a company right down the street from me, but if the accounts payable clerk is located in another state, in another time zone, I need to understand that, so when I'm organizing my collection calls for the day, I'm not calling them when they're at lunch or when they're out of the office. Small customers, large customers. This can be big, and it's going to be different on how you define small and large. We have some customers that are using our application, and for them, a large customer buys, $10,000 worth of product or service a year. We have other customers that are selling very large capital equipment, and it might be $500,000 for one piece of equipment. So define your customers, are they mom and pops, are they smaller, are they larger? What you're going to probably find is the Pareto principle. 80% of your revenue is coming from your top 20% of your accounts. It's pretty typical across businesses. The problem we have in credit collections is that we try to treat everyone equal, where really 80% of our effort should be focused on those 20% of our accounts, because they represent 80% of our revenue and probably 80% of our problems. And we'll show you ways that you can manage to that level within the software. Organizational structure, you do need to understand this when it comes to your customers, especially the larger ones. In many cases, the person that authorized the purchase of our product and service is not the person responsible for ensuring we get paid. So we need to understand if we're communicating on a dispute or another issue, that we're getting that information to the person that authorized the purchase, as well as the person that's responsible inevitably for making that payment. We also need to understand their structure when it comes to, maybe we send them an invoice, and if they're only cutting payables checks once a month, if we get it to them at the beginning of the month, we're waiting almost 30 days to get paid. So we need to understand their structure. They may have a process in place where it has to go through 2 or 3 levels for approval before they can even get it into the system for payment. So the quicker we get them the invoice, the quicker it can go through their internal process, and obviously the quicker we can get paid there. Corporate culture and history are also going to be important. Some companies are just notoriously a slow pay. If we want to do business with them, we just kind of have to accept that, but there are things we can do to prod them along. There's other companies that are going to practice cash flow management, and even though we extend that 30 terms to them, they're always going to pay us in 60 days. We need to understand that, because we can then cut their terms back. If they're always taking twice terms, let's take them from net 30 down to net 15, and then maybe we'll get paid when we want, which is net 30. Payment policies and procedures, again, internally it may need to go through a formal process. There may need to be multiple sign-offs. They may need their purchase order to appear on the invoice in order for them to remit payment. These are important things that we need to know, because if that doesn't happen, it's going to delay payment. Are they an established customer or a new account? Big difference here, right? And we have customers we've been doing business with for 20+ years. Those customers we have a relationship with. We want to make sure that we don't upset them. We don't want to automate funding letters to go out with threatening language to those accounts. But if we have newer customers that are maybe a little higher risk, we weren't quite sure about bringing them on board, we're going to have a different message and maybe a different workflow that goes along with these new accounts to ensure that they understand that net 30 means net 30, not pay us when you feel like it. To that end, we also have strategic and national accounts, right? These are our big customers. These are the ones that we want to make them feel important. And credit collections is really nothing more than an extension of the sales process. We spend so much time and effort generating leads, managing sales, working the opportunities through CRM and closing the business. The last thing we want to do is jeopardize those strategic relationships when it comes to getting paid. So we really need CRM to extend into our credit collections philosophies and strategies. The other thing we need to understand is the national account structure. Every one of us for the most part, has to deal with this, where we're selling to a subsidiary, but the parent organization is responsible for the payment. We need to have some visibility into that. We may be dealing with 2 or 3 subsidiaries where the parent is responsible. We need to have all that information available to us in order to be more effective in our collection calls. And the last part of this, most small businesses don't do this, but it is important to understand the credit risk for your customers. You may not want to run credit reports for everyone, but it certainly is a best practice if you want to run credit reports on maybe some of your larger customers where you have a higher exposure. So that's step 1, is really understanding our customers a little better. Step 2 is understanding our contacts. They say in sales that people buy from people they like. I like to extend that to credit collections. People pay people they like. We need to build relationships with our customers and the contacts of those customers, because at the end of the day, they're just doing their job. They're toting the corporate line. But if they have a choice of paying a competitor or paying us, I want them to like me more so that they cut that check to me first. I need to understand, who's my primary contact. It might be the accounts payable clerk, but they might not have authorization on certain things. If there's a dispute, I want to know who's the secondary contact. Who do I go to if I need to escalate an issue? Who do I go to if they happen to be on extended leave? Maybe it's maternity leave or vacation. I also need to understand their gender and age. We've all talked, in the past about the psychology of communication. People of different age groups tend to communicate a little different. Women communicate very differently than men. I know that. I just got married. So we need to understand these. I'll give you a couple examples here as well. We have some customers where our contacts in AP are older. They don't like email. They don't like technology as much, more technology averse. They prefer written communication. If we simply understand that and we give them the information they need in the format that they want, it's going to help them do their jobs more effectively. So in those cases, we may be faxing information to them. We may be mailing statements to them. Where if we have somebody that's younger and they're less technology averse, they may be perfectly fine. In fact, they may prefer to receive communications via email, or even be open to doing customer self-service where they go to a portal, view the information online, and make their payments online. Location and work schedule is also important, especially if you're dealing with smaller companies. They might have a part-time bookkeeper or AP clerk. They only work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday till noon. Well, I need to understand that, because otherwise I'm never going to be able to get a hold of them when I expect to. And physically, where are they located? They may not be working from the office. They may be in a satellite office. They may be doing bookkeeping from a home office. So we need to understand, again, if we're making that call, are they in the same time zone? Are they in a different location? Maybe they didn't get the invoice because we sent it to corporate and they need to transfer that down to the subsidiary. Lots of things to consider there. Role, position, and authority. If I'm dealing with an AP clerk, a lot of times they can get me what I need. But again, if I need to escalate something for a dispute, they may not have the authority to approve a write-off or a change to the invoice. So I need to understand who has that power within the organization. Communication style and preference. Again, everybody's a little different. Some companies, they prefer that you call them. Others prefer that you email them. Some people will want to talk on the phone about everything in the world, including, how your kids are doing in school. Others are all business, so you need to understand that and be able to adapt your communication styles to theirs. Education and experience is incredibly important. I don't think really the education is much, more the experience. If you're dealing with a new AP clerk, they've only been there for a few weeks, they don't know the ins and outs of their system or their corporate culture. It's going to take them time to adapt. Where if I'm dealing with accounts payable and they've been there for 20 years, they're pretty much entrenched in the business. They should know what's going on. Personality and personal life. This is where I'm a firm believer that we can add a lot of value to our customers. Credit collections is really nothing more than closing the sales process. You know, we worked real hard to get the deal. Now we're just trying to get paid on it, because if we don't get paid, we really didn't sell anything, we gave it away. What we need to do is to build this relationship with our customers so that they like to do business with us. So we're non-confrontational. We're taking their side. We're trying to resolve issues and make their life easier. And it needs to be legitimate. It needs to be authentic. If we're asking them, you know, how they're doing today, we really need to mean that. And if they seem down, we need to ask them. Take time out. This is part of the customer relationship. We need to understand what drives them to some extent. Some of them it's going to be efficiency. Some of it's going to be the camaraderie. Some of them are going to hate their jobs. Others are going to love their jobs. Understanding this will help us to communicate better with our customers. If you're international and you're doing credit collections across geographies or certain parts of the country, get down in the south, you know, southern Texas, etc., and you're dealing with contacts that maybe English isn't their first language, you need to understand that. What is the language and potential language gaps that you're going to have to deal with? If you're a global company, then you probably need to consider having multilingual resources available for credit collections, or at least communicating with your customers in their preferred language when it comes to written communication. You know, if I'm dealing with a company in southern Texas and they're owned by a Hispanic family and English is not their first language, they may prefer that I communicate, you know, statements, invoices, etc., in Spanish. Culture is also a big one. We're a global company. Our applications are in use around the world. This is something I've actually had to learn a little bit through the years, because before we were predominantly North American. But you get into even certain populations in the U.S. and you hit, you know, Jewish communities. Your customers might be Jewish-owned. They could be Islamic-owned. You need to be respectful of their holidays and their cultures. And so educating you on those, you know, will help you, I think, a long way toward building a very healthy relationship with your customers, regardless of their language, regardless of their culture. All right, third item here on our research is understanding our accounts receivable. What is our current aging? Pretty easy to get that out of our Navision system or Dynamics Nav, right? But even further beyond the aging, we need to understand what is our DSO, or days sales outstanding. DSO really is a measure of how fast our customers are paying us. Most companies we deal with are extending net 30 terms, you know, thereabouts to their customers. But most of those companies are also getting paid in about 60 days on average. So it's taking customers twice as long to pay than their agreed upon terms. For some companies that may be okay. Personally, I see a problem with that. Net 30 means net 30. By using some of these techniques we're going to talk about later, maybe using some of the software like we're going to show you, you should be able to get your DSO down by about 20% in the first year, sometimes more, sometimes a little less. So, you know, again, if you're at 60 days on net 30 terms, you can get a 20% improvement. You're getting paid 12 days faster. That's a pretty significant bump in your cash flow, access to working capital, and it's going to reduce invoice disputes and potentially bad debt write-offs as well. Some other metrics you're going to want to look at is what are your average days to pay, a little different than your DSO. And then what really, at the end of the day, the one that I like the most is average days late, or ADL. Because if I'm extending you net 30 terms, I really want paid in 30 days. If I'm extending you net 60 days, maybe I ran a promo. That's fine, pay me in 60 days. I just want to know how late are you in respect to the terms on the invoice. I need to understand what are my average credit terms and credit limits. You know, who's responsible for setting them or changing them. I need to understand, you know, what my bad debt write-offs were, you know, last year, the year before. They're getting worse, they're getting better. Do I have disputes and broken promises? If so, maybe take a deeper dive into that data. Why am I having disputes? Do I even have any clue? You know, is it because the invoice is wrong or they have questions about it? Was there a problem with the product or service? Was there a problem with shipping? There could be a whole slew of things that are causing disputes, which if we understand, we can get the root cause analysis and prevent them from happening to begin with. We need to understand if we're able to forecast cash and working capital effectively, and if so, how effective are we? Do we have an 80% certainty that we're going to expect a certain amount of cash in a certain time frame? We also need to identify our invoice volume and size. There's going to potentially be some variability in there by season, depending on the nature of our business. But that's going to impact our ability as credit collection professionals to be able to manage that workload. So that's the research there. Now let's talk about some goals here. This is really the goal. We want to get paid faster. Now there's many ways to look at this goal. We could do it in terms of a percent or maybe days reduction. If our average days late right now is 30 days, we want to get that down by 10%, get paid 3 days faster, or maybe we want to shave 5 days off of that. We can look at the time frame on when we want this goal to take effect, right? We want to reduce average days late by 5 days, but we want to do that in the context of 1 year. I think it's important that we set a time frame on when we expect to get these goals. Industry benchmarks, sometimes a lot of companies we work with, they have no idea if they're doing a good job with accounts receivable or not. They just kind of accept the fact that customers pay when they feel like it. If you go to, there's a website, Credit Research Foundation, if you Google them, you'll find them. I think it's crfonline.com or .org. You can participate in a free survey where you upload some of your financials. It's all anonymous. But the benefit of that is they will benchmark your accounts receivable, your days sales outstanding, your average days late against your peers in a similar industry and similar size. So you can find out, are you doing better or worse than your peers in your industry? Really cool free tool. I suggest everybody goes out and does that. Getting paid faster, sometimes we don't need to do this across the entire portfolio of accounts. We may want to focus on a subset. Again, 80-20 rule. If 80% of our revenue is coming from 20% of our customers, so let's focus on that subset so we can get the biggest bang for our buck. Cash flow considerations, if our vendors and suppliers are squeezing us and they're reducing their terms from net 30 maybe down to net 20 or net 15, or they're requiring a 50% down payment, we need to consider this because it's going to affect our cash flow. That's when we need to reevaluate the credit terms that we're extending to our customers. And then we need to look at what are the strategies we're going to implement to support the goal of getting paid faster. Bad debt write-offs, another goal that you guys should be looking at out there. The first step here is identifying why are we writing off bad debt. Did we sell product to a company that we shouldn't have? Did we not identify the credit risk sooner? Were there problems on our end that required us to write off that debt? We need to understand what did we write off last year. Again, benchmark ourselves against our peers. Industry average, it's kind of an older stat. I haven't seen anything new lately, but on average, most companies are writing off about 4% of their receivables every year to bad debt. So it may not sound like a lot. Let's put it in perspective. If you're selling $10 million a year, you're writing off $400,000 a year if you're average. If you're doing really, really well and you're only writing off maybe 2%, that's still $200,000 you're writing off every year. A small percent of your overall sales, but what if you could reduce that by 10, 20%? 10%, you're saving $20,000 a year. 20%, you're saving $40,000 a year. Certain industries, you get into wholesale distribution, some manufacturing segments, you're operating on razor-thin margins. You got to make up a whole lot of sales to make up for that amount of bad debt write-off. So really important to understand that. Again, identify with bad debts, do we want to reduce it by 1% or a certain dollar amount? And then again, what are the strategies we're going to implement to support that goal? Disputes, you know what happens every single time that we take that risk to extend credit to our customers. Somebody's going to have a reason why they can't pay the bill. Some of them are valid, some of them aren't. To be honest, most of the time it's our own fault. The reason that they're disputing the invoice is because there was a problem with the invoice. They're tax exempt, we charged them tax, the freight rate was wrong, their billable rate was wrong, sent the invoice to the wrong place, they didn't get it, sent them the wrong product, wrong price, what have you. You know, sometimes we are our own worst enemies. So we need to understand that so we can fix those problems so they don't happen again. You know, that just lends itself to bad customer service. But identify this, you know, track your disputes by reason code, identify how many disputes you had, how long did it take you to resolve the disputes, and what was the, you know, the financial impact, right? What was the dollar amount of those disputes? And can we reduce that, you know, by a dollar maybe or by a %? And again, strategies and goals around the invoice disputes. Some other goals here, 6.5, it's a bonus I threw in here. Improving customer satisfaction. We're always looking to do that every time that we can resolve an issue, even if it's a credit collections or a dispute. It's going to go a long way toward retaining that customer, improving our customer satisfaction, improving their net promoter score so they'll be more apt to recommend us to colleagues and people they know. And reducing that order to cash cycle time. You know, there's a lot of things we can do there. We'll talk about some strategies. Reducing the time to invoice. You know, a lot of us, we get a little lazy. You know, we're real quick to get the order into the system so we can recognize the revenue, but it might take us a week or two to get that invoice out to the customer. You know, if we can get that invoice out quicker, guess what? We're going to get paid quicker. Reducing your labor costs. Reliance on collection agencies and their associated fees, reducing our dependence on factoring and short-term loans when cash flow becomes an issue, reducing legal fees. You know, you'd be amazed, maybe you wouldn't, there's times when we talk to companies and you know, they say, yeah, we have a problem with AR, but we're not really worried about it because you know, if the customer doesn't pay, we just turn them over to a collection agency. I'm like, well, that's interesting. How much are you guys paying a year in collection fees? Hey, you know, we're really not quite sure. When they dig into it, they realize it's a lot of money. You know, and all of that hits your bottom line in one way or the other. You know, it's going to increase the cost of your products and services. If you can avoid those, be more effective in your own collections, you know, why wouldn't you want to do that? Plus, you don't want to turn your customers over to a collection agency unless it's a last resort and you have no other options available to you. You know, factoring, short-term loans, they're costly. There's no need for that. Your AR's out there. Just go get the money that people already owe you. You know, legal fees, again, should be a last resort. You don't want to threaten legal action to a customer because at that point you probably lost that customer for good. Collection strategy, there's a lot of things that go into the collection strategy. The first step, now we've done our research, is setting a credit policy. We have a white paper we can make available to you that kind of talks about how to create a credit policy. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant to begin with, but what I suggest is you create one, make it a page or two, document some of your policies and procedures, and then use it. Don't put it on a shelf and let it collect dust. It needs to be something that you're utilizing. Things in the credit policy, you know, what are our credit limits and credit terms? Who has the ability to override them, to change them? Who's responsible for extending credit? Who's responsible for making collection calls? Really just, you know, some things that need to be documented so that everyone in the organization understands what your policies and procedures are. From a collection standpoint, you know, again, you don't have to go crazy with this, but define what the process looks like. You know, we send the invoices out, we invoice weekly. The minute the, maybe not even a minute, maybe 3 days before the invoice is due, but we haven't had payment in full, we want a reminder to go out to the customers and tell them, hey, you know, you have these invoices, they're due in the next 3 days, haven't received payment, you know, please let us know when we can expect payment. If you have made a payment, please disregard. We've all seen those letters, right? None of us do it, though. We don't have time for it. And we'll talk about that later, how some of the software can help you with that. But what do we do now when the reminder didn't work and we get to 5 days past due or 10 days past due? Is that when we want the collector to make the first call? What do we do at 15 days past due? Do we send them an email, make it past due, dunning letter, and queue up another call for the collector, a second call? What do we do at 30 days past due? Is that when we put their account on hold and start to threaten third-party collections or legal action? You define what that process looks like. You can even tailor that to a group of customers or one particular customer, but define it. Talk about how you're going to handle email and automation. We have technology available to us today. It's incredibly affordable. Let's look at ways to leverage technology to be more proactive, get more done with less effort. Account and task assignment, if you happen to be a larger company, you might have this luxury. I might be able to take my portfolio, split it in half, and I have one person dedicated, my top 20% of my customers. If I have 1,000 accounts, that means they're responsible for 80% of my revenue, but only managing 200 accounts. They can be a little more effective there, build relationships with those accounts better. I could take the other part of the portfolio, the other 800 customers that are 20% of my revenue, give them to somebody else to manage, give them some tools to automate some things so they're more effective, and split, really the tasks that need to be accomplished. Or maybe I have one person that handles everything up to 30 days past due, up to 10,000 past due, but then I escalate anything that's kind of a more critical level to a more senior person that is more equipped to handle those types of issues and disputes. Escalation, what is our escalation policy, procedure, when do we escalate, why do we escalate, who do we escalate to? Centralizing the information. I'm gonna make a prediction here because I've dealt with about, several thousand companies now that have been looking at our software through the years. If you have no software in place today to manage accounts receivable, credit collections, and I'm not talking about Navision AR, where you can create an invoice and make a note on a customer record. I'm talking about a system that's in place that tells you what you need to do from the time the invoice is created and sent to the customer to the time you get payment. Your process today is probably involving a spreadsheet, a printed aging report, a variety pack of highlighters. You got your orange one, your yellow one, your green one, your blue one, and you're making notes on the forms, you're color coding things. This one needs a follow-up, that one has a dispute, and it's all written. I know a lot of you on the call today are probably shaking your head because you understand this. It's the wrong way to go about it. All this information should be centralized at your fingertips. You shouldn't have to go into Navision to get the financial information, go into your CRM to get the contact information, going to your email to find out what your last email communication was, and then go to a paper-based system or a spreadsheet to find out other details. Just pull all that information in one place, make it available within a couple mouse clicks, give you the documents you need. Maybe it's a customer contract right there at the customer account record, give you the supporting documents that go along with the invoice, could be the signed PO, could be the bill of lading, the packing slip, the timesheet if you're a time and service company. Pull all that data together. No more handwritten notes, no more printed reports, and no more spreadsheets. It's put in the system. Benefit here is everything's in one place. If we escalate things to other people, it's all in one place by the account, by invoice. If we segregate that portfolio, again, all that information's there. If we have turnover in AR, all that information is there. It's not in somebody's personal inbox. This makes a whole lot of sense. Managed by exception, we do this in manufacturing, right? We're running MRP to look for exceptions in our material plans, but why the heck don't we do this in AR? We need a better way, right? We need to be able to prioritize our activities. We need to be able to look at which call should be my first of the day. It's the company that has the highest credit risk, that owes me the most money. That's my first call. I need to be able to organize my to-do list in that way. I need to be able to reduce the time that I spend preparing for a call. And some of the research that we found online sometimes it'll take you twice as long to prepare for a call than it does to make the call itself. In fact, it's pretty typical. Right? I got to go research the account, find out if there's a dispute, what happened with the dispute, is it still in dispute, did we make a credit, did we process an RMA, all that takes time. Who's the right person to contact? If I can reduce the time it takes me to prepare for that call, boom, instant efficiency. I need to be able to manage by exception by closing or auto-closing issues. So let's say that I'm calling today because I printed the aging report, customer owes me money, but I printed the aging report a week ago. In the meantime, the customer made a payment. I'm calling the customer, asking them why they didn't pay me. They say, yeah, you know what, I did pay you. You should have got the check Monday. I look in the system, boom, it's there. Well, I just wasted a whole lot of time making a call that I didn't have to. The software that we developed will help you manage by exception, because if the software tells you to make a call and you don't get to that call today, you go back in tomorrow, the data resyncs. If they made a payment and they have a $0 invoice, that task is removed from your to-do list. You don't have to waste your time making that call. Manage by exception also allows you to spend more time calling, because I don't have to do all this time preparing, so I can talk to my customers more. At the end of the day, that's a good thing, right? Build that relationship, be more proactive. I can also divide and conquer if needed. If I find an issue, I can escalate that, let somebody else deal with disputes while I go and dial for dollars on the rest of the customers that I need to get to on my list. The other thing it allows me to do is to not avoid those difficult calls. Kind of a tip here. Credit collections is not a fun thing. I don't think any of us grow up and say, hey, I want to be a collector when I get older. It takes a special person to do this, but you can't avoid those difficult calls. I mean, sometimes you need to identify when it's time to say, you know what, I think we all need a little time to cool off here. Why don't I call you back on Friday and we'll talk about this again. But you can't avoid those difficult calls when you know that you've underperformed, underdelivered, or where the customer is just simply being difficult. Let's know who to call, right? We talked about this a little bit earlier. Who's my primary contact? Who's my secondary contact? Who's a supervisor? Who authorized the purchase? Hey, who's the sales rep that sold these guys, right? Sometimes I need to go back to the sales rep and say, what the heck were you thinking? Or wait a minute, I don't see the details on this order. They're telling me that the price was, $15 per part. Now the invoice says it's $18 and they're disputing it. So you need to identify who's a sales rep so that you can go back to them. Who's handling the escalations? What's the account status and their tendencies? Do they always dispute things? Do they always pay late? Do they always break promises to pay? So let's know who we're calling and why we're calling. Know when to call. Talked about this a little bit earlier. When do they work? Pretty important. When do they take lunch? What's their time zone? But for some people, it's a preference. I'll tell you right now, you call me at 8 o'clock in the morning, not going to be good. You're better off calling me right after lunch. Heck, you're better off calling me at lunch, because I don't even take a lunch. And if I do, I eat at my desk. Other people, they're in here, Johnny on the spot, 8 o'clock in the morning. You call them. They're not busy because the day really hasn't started for the rest of us. Probably the best time to call them. You need to make note of that. Call frequency is also important. You can't call your customers too often or they're going to start to ignore you. We all know that. Certain customers, they need a little more prodding. We can call them more often. And then as far as knowing when to call, do we call them immediately or do we wait? It's going to depend on the contact, going to depend on the company, going to depend on the nature of why we're calling them. Why are we calling them? Are we calling them because there's an issue at hand, a dispute, late payment? Are we calling them to follow up on an open dispute? Are we calling them because they're a great customer and we want to talk to them about extending their credit terms or their credit limits? We want to thank them for their business to find out how we can do more business with them. Are we calling them because they're a new customer and we want to make sure that there was no problem with that first-time invoice, that they're happy with the product and service we provided? There's lots of reasons that we should be calling them. We need to be able to look at any other outstanding issues. We might be calling on one, but having visibility that there might be a dispute or something else going on. We need to have that in front of us. We need to be able to look at the communication history, find out what happened the last time we made a call. Is it a new customer call? Are we doing an annual credit review? And what's the information I need for the call, right? If it's a dispute, maybe I want to talk to the returns department or shipping before I get on that call with that customer. Knowing what to say. If you've been doing credit collections for a while, you get pretty good at this over time. You come up with kind of your own call script. You can adapt kind of on the fly. But if you're a little new to credit collections, sometimes you need to practice. Maybe put together a call script. Practice that call script until it becomes normal for you. And then once you get a little bit better at that, maybe you don't need the full call script. All you need are talking points, right? I'm calling. It's a new customer. These are the things I need to talk to them about. Introduce myself. Thank them for their business. Find out if they had any issues with the product or service. Make sure they got the invoice. Are there any problems with the invoice? And then talk about our credit policies and procedures. Hey, you guys are on net 30 terms. Is there any reason why you wouldn't pay on, in 30 days? Nope, no problem whatsoever. Document, move on. So we can do a lot of different things just by being prepared. Tone of voice is incredibly important, and sometimes it's difficult for us as human beings to control. If we've had a bad day, somebody irritated us, happens once in a while, we need to make sure that doesn't come across in our tone of voice. These are our customers. It takes a lot more effort to get a new customer than it does to retain one. If we're having a bad day, maybe we need to take a step back and say, I need to get myself in a good place before I make this call. I can use certain psychological strategies with my customers. I'll give you some examples here. This kind of ties into the last points here with kill them with kindness. We used to have a gal that handled collections for us, and I'm going to be honest with you, we had no collection problems. She was amazing, always in a great mood. We call our customers. We could have screwed up big time to the point where they were ready to leave us. And at the end of that call, they were our best friend because Lynn was phenomenal at collections. She'd call them. She was happy. She was there to serve them. She was never calling to collect. She was calling to prepare her cash flow forecast for her boss and was asking if they could give her information on when we could expect a payment to help her do her job. Little things that like psychology strategy, it's not credit collections. I'm calling to follow up to make sure you're happy with what we did for you. I'm calling to get information that I need from you so that I can do my job to prepare my report. Little things you can do can go a long way. Never be confrontational, even if you want to be. Sometimes you got to say, you know what, let me go do some more research and I'll call you back on that. Your job is to resolve the issue. Your job is to get paid. It's not to have an argument. Be apologetic and sympathetic, even if it's not your fault. Customer ordered the wrong product. You want to say, hey, idiot, you ordered the wrong product. You say, you know what, I understand. That happens all the time. You're a valued customer. Let me see what I can do for you. Go find out what you can do for them. Can you process an RMA, get it turned around? You're there to take care of the customer. Listen more than you talk, right? Effective communication, 80% of it's listening, depending on what studies you look at. Sometimes you just need to call them and say, hey, this is Jim from Anytime Collect. I'm calling on this invoice. I wanted to find out why we haven't received payment yet. And then shut your mouth and listen to them. Let them go. If they go for 15 minutes, do the effective listening drills with them. I hear what you're saying. Please tell me more. I'm having a hard time understanding. Can you explain? Let them know that you're on the same page with them and ask them for more information. At the end of the call, you're going to have a better resolution. I guarantee it. In sales, they say you never leave a call without asking for the deal, right? So there's a reason why you're not going to buy. If I'm making a collection call and I get to the end of it, I should ask for the money. So when can we expect to receive that check? Or when are you going to make an ACH payment? Get the commitment. Are you sure you're able to get that into the next check run? Okay, thank you. I'll put you down as a promise to pay for the end of the week. That way they know that you understand when they've committed to pay you. Kill them with kindness. You be as nice as possible, be as flexible as possible within reason. Handling objections, you know, you're going to run into this. Hopefully it's few and far between, but it does happen. You need to take control of the situation. You know, this is your customer, it's your accounts receivable. You've already provided the product and service to them if you're sold on credit terms. You need to take control. You also need to remain calm and collected, right? You can't get all bent out of shape. Understand their point of view. Know when to end the call and try again if they start getting really irate. Take ownership of the situation and resolution. If the customer is mad because we keep screwing something up, then we need to go investigate that. So my conversation with the customer is something like this. You know, I understand your frustration. I would feel the same way. Let me go look into that, and I'm going to make sure that it doesn't happen again. I'm then going to take ownership of that. I'm going to go to whoever it is internally that can fix that problem. Root cause analysis, make sure that it never happens again for that customer. Go back to them, explain what happened. It's going to go a long way toward your relationship. Your job is customer service. Sometimes, you know, you're going to run into customers that are having problems paying, or they have an open dispute, but it might not be for the full amount. And we bill them for $100. They're disputing $20. Well, you know, would you feel comfortable making a payment of $80 today? Might as well get something rather than nothing, right? Leave the other 20 out there in dispute instead of the full amount. If you happen to have common disputes that occur, you run into this in a lot of industries like transportation and logistics. You know, there's 80 million reasons to dispute a freight invoice, and I think there's probably more than that. Come up with some call scripts, maybe talking points on some of the more common reasons for disputes, kind of guide you through those more difficult calls. And again, there are times when you need to say, you know what, I can't help you on this. Unfortunately, I'm going to escalate this to our CFO, to our vice president of sales, or whoever you need to. Sometimes it just takes a fresh face, a fresh voice, somebody else to be able to insert themselves into the process to get resolution. Talked about this a little bit earlier. The cost of acquiring a new customer is estimated at 7 times the cost to retain them, so let's keep them happy. Most companies write off 4% of AR, $10 million business. It's a lot of money. If we get a little small improvement here, you know, we can save a whole lot. It goes directly to our bottom line. Another thing to consider, for every customer complaint out there, there's about 6 other customers that have been silent. So if we have problems that we're seeing over and over again, there's probably other customers that are experiencing that, and it's a bigger problem than we anticipated. Little quote here at the bottom. Wanted to throw some stuff in here, let you know what our customers are saying about us. M Sparks Company, our media company, started with us. I think around Sage 100, might be on a Dynamics product, not quite sure. Work with a lot of different ERPs, but probably similar size to most of you on the phone today. And they love the product. It says user-friendly, it can be sorted in any manner you want. Couldn't be happier with Anytime Collect. Recommend to anybody that needs it for a better way to manage their AR. Well said. 15, know what to do next, right? So document what we've done. That's pretty important. You know, if we happen to go on vacation, somebody needs to know where we left things. Was it successful? Was it unsuccessful? How can we improve? We're always looking for continuous improvement. Set a reminder so we don't forget things, right? It doesn't need to exist on a piece of paper. It should be in a system that pops up and says, you need to do this now. If we say we're going to do something, we need to do it. We need to follow through in the activities. We need an integrated calendar. We need to utilize our collection plan, right? We set that up earlier. We did our research. We know when we're going to do certain things. We need to follow that. If changes need to be made, we need to make the changes in the plan. Automate the reminders. You know, that can save us a lot of time if we don't have to go in and send reminders to customers or statements. Use technology to make us more efficient. Escalate things. Talked about that really quite a bit so far. And then monitor our high risk effectively. There's 5 customers that represent about half of our receivables. I'm paying attention to those 5 customers right now, especially if they're late. Business analytics, you know, looking at what's happening. And what is our aging? Is it going up? Is it going down? Collection activities, are we making more calls, less calls? Are we more successful? Are we less successful getting somebody on the phone? Is the amount in dispute increasing, decreasing? Who are our top customers? Is that changing? It should be. It should ever be changing. You should be adding more customers and selling more and more product to the customers. Are our customers breaking promises to pay? If so, who are they? Our cash forecast, projected receipts, are they accurate? Analyzing things by invoice size, are customers paying us fast on the small invoices but slow on the larger invoices because they're having cash flow problems? Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe they pay us really fast on the large invoices because those are the ones we're calling on. They're letting, the $5 and $10 invoices slide by. We can adjust our collection strategies appropriately. Looking at dispute and resolution analysis, we're constantly getting issues regarding freight. Maybe we need to do root cause analysis, get down, and we identify it's only with one particular carrier. Maybe we need to go back to the carrier and resolve that issue. Or maybe we need to stop using that carrier. Other analytics, we can look at any of this information down to the account level. We can look at it by project or job if you're in construction or professional services. Lots of ways we can slice and dice this information to get really some very useful intelligence that we can implement to make significant changes in our process and better serve our customers. Back to the key performance indicators. Earlier we talked about setting those goals. Now it's time to measure them, find out what's working and what's not. Do we look at DSO? It depends if your average terms are net 30 pretty much across the board. DSO is probably okay. You're never going to be at a DSO of 30 on average net 30 terms. It's just never going to happen. You should be able to get that down within reason, maybe down to 40 days DSO on net 30 terms. Better metric, again, I like is average days late. So it really doesn't matter what the customer's terms are. It doesn't really matter what the invoice terms are. We just want to know how late are our customers on average, right? Or if they're 10 days late when we start, and we want to get that down by 2 days in the next 6 months, let's monitor it. Let's watch that. It's our key performance indicator. Invoice disputes, maybe I'm managing 20 disputes right now and I want to get that down to 15, or maybe right now I've got $100,000 in disputes and I want to get that down to 80,000. Set a goal, measure the goal, monitor the goal, continually improve. Keep it simple. Too many times we set all these goals. We don't know how to measure it. We're inconsistent taking the measurements. We don't know really kind of the underlying information that is feeding these KPIs. Let's keep it simple. Start with average days late. Start with your bad debt write-offs. Maybe that's all you start with to begin with. You can always add stuff later. And let's continually review and refine our policies and procedures because things change, right? We acquire a new business, and suddenly we're dealing with a whole new group of customers in different industries, different geographies. We need to go back and review our policies and procedures because things have changed. We've added, maybe we weren't dealing with big box retailers, and all of a sudden we are. I'll tell you right now, a deal with Walmart is very different than dealing with a mom and pop. So you're going to need to change your policies and procedures, if not for anything else than Walmart. Last but not least here, keep everyone informed, right? Credit collections typically operates in a silo, which is probably the worst thing possible. Sometimes it reports to accounting, most parts. Probably should also be aligned with sales in some respect, right? Because we're dealing a lot with what sales is already sold. We need to keep people informed. We need to keep our customer informed of what's going on with their accounts receivable and their credit. We need to involve everybody else in our credit team, let them know what's happening, finance and accounting. Executive management, they want to know where the money's at. Sales reps, they got a big deal pending and we're about ready to put their customer on credit hold because of a big dispute. We need to get them involved in the process, make sure they're aware of what's happening. Customer service, they're handling issues. We need to be integrated with them. If we identify reasons for maybe it's a dispute, happens to relate to manufacturing, quality, or shipping, we need to let that department know what's happening. IT, we need to involve IT, let them know what information we need to be more effective. And then we've got external stakeholders, right? Sometimes we need to involve legal counsel. Sometimes we need to involve third-party collection agencies. Have a system, have a process, and let everybody be part of this. Wrap it up here, a couple-minute commercial on Anytime Collect. Truly a better way to get paid faster. The reason that we developed Anytime Collect is because there wasn't much out there on the market, I'll be honest with you. You know, we create invoices in our ERP software, we send them to the customers, almost like we turn the light off, sit there, hope and pray that they pay us on time, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So then we get into a cash crunch, right, and we start dialing for dollars, we call the customer, now it's 60 days late, we find out that they had a problem with the product, they're waiting on an RMA, by the time we straighten all that out, it's another 30 days that's gone by. Meanwhile, now we're up to 90 to 120 days, and we still haven't been paid. By that point, the people that were involved could have been promoted, could have been let go, a whole slew of things could have happened. We're putting ourselves at risk. We need to be proactive in this process earlier in the process to avoid bad debt write-offs. The faster we identify a dispute, the faster we can resolve it, the faster we can get paid. It's going to have an impact on your bottom line. Promise you that. One of our customers, this is another quote they put out there for us. They said it provides their credit managers and collection reps more information than they've ever had, providing insights they need to act instead of react to outstanding accounts. Again, couldn't have said it better myself. Some of the major features of the software, we'll kind of wrap up a little commercial here, whether you want to take a look at the software or not. Certainly would appreciate it if you did. We do a lot of things here. We can automate email to customers. You put rules set together. When do they receive reminders? When do they receive statements, past due notices, open invoice reports? You can define your own mail merge templates. You can define your own email templates. Software queues up, prioritize call lists. So you start at the top, work your way down to the bottom. Has built-in dispute management, built-in KPIs, business intelligence, dashboards, built-in document management, so you have all that information in one place. It's available in multiple languages, so if you are global, you can log in different languages, you can communicate with your customers in their preferred language. Also multi-currency as well. It's got built-in cash forecasting, so you can go in there, put in promises to pay, they can put in expected payments. We even have statistical forecasting based on your customer's payment history to try to predict when they will pay an invoice. Everything's in one place, so it don't matter if you've got people spread all over the country. They can get to the internet, secure browser, log into the software. All that information is in one place for them. We've got built-in tools for credit and risk management, credit scoring, that kind of stuff. ERP data synchronization, so we can pull that information in from Navision. Make sure you're working with the most up-to-date data. You got a larger credit team. You got people reporting to different people. You have team concepts. All that's supported in the application. Email alerts, notifications, escalations, all that's embedded, so we can send alerts out to real users like the credit collections team or inquiry users like the sales reps. Let them know if they happen to have accounts that are on hold, have invoices in dispute, what have you. So they're kept in the loop on what's happening. We can even manage payment schedules. So a customer says they can't make a payment, they owe us $12,000. You know what? We'll put together a payment schedule, pay me $1,000 a month for the next 12 months. So just some of the major features, a lot more in the software, of course, but pretty good functionality there. Return on investment. Most of our customers within the first year are getting really about a 20% reduction in their DSO, to be honest with you. At the lower end, probably 10%. About a 25% reduction in their past due receivables, and on average, about a 20% reduction in their bad debt write-offs. They're able to do a whole lot more with a whole lot less staff. And on the right, we have an ROI calculator. Get a hold of your partner here, and they can share this link with you. You can go into our ROI calculator, put in your financials, plug in the number of users you think you need for the software. It'll tell you what your savings is going to be. You're going to get an ROI in 2 months, 6 months. Maybe you're doing a bang-up job on collections and you don't need the software. It'll tell you that too. So a nice tool to basically identify if you might be a candidate for this type of product. A couple screenshots here. The one on the left is our dashboard. So you log in, give you some of your KPIs, projected cash receipts, average days late, trended by the number of days late, amount late, current AR, top customers, DSO, average days late by size of invoice, lots of data out here. On the right is your prioritized action list. So I don't need to guess what I'm doing. I start at the top, work my way down through that list. Hopefully at the end of the day I get it all done. And if not, come in tomorrow, it tells me I still have stuff left to do. There's an optional module available. It's Done Collecting. Work with Michelle Dunn. She's an expert in credit collections management. Used to own a collection agency. It's an optional module if you want to add this to your system. It includes some of her call script templates, email templates, letter templates, those types of things. More importantly, it gives you a couple hours where you can spend one-on-one time with Michelle, talk to her about your particular needs, your particular industry. Maybe you need some training for somebody that's a little more junior or newer to the position. Always a great resource to have when you have somebody who's been doing it as long as Michelle has. She also has a number of ebooks out there. You get up the Kindle edition, $5-10 on average. Great resources out there. Not including the bundle, but you can find them out on Amazon. Always a good resource, kind of help you out a little bit. Some of her books here promote her because we like her a lot. Guide to Getting Paid, guide on telephone call scripts, effective collection letter agencies, or agency letters and forms. You can adapt them to your business. Lots of different things out here. Resources we provide, we'll make this available to you guys after the webinar. We have a lot of stuff out here if you're interested in our software. We actually have a buyer's guide. Talks to you about how you can evaluate our software and our competitors, because there are some out there on the market. We have white papers on how many employees do you need to be effective, how do you handle disputes, how do you create a credit policy, how do you develop killer call scripts, 17 ways to reduce AR. It kind of expands on this webinar a little bit. So lots of these resources. The resource guide we'll make available to you also includes hyperlinks to videos so you can watch live videos of the software. And if you want to take a deeper dive, we'll do a live demonstration for you. Last quote here and we'll wrap up. Anytime Collect is a much better system than the $1 million system I used before in the areas that perform the same task. It's our good friends at Kalmbach Feeds. It's another great testimonial here. And I ran a little over because I talked too darn much. So now it's your turn to talk. I'm going to turn it back over to Michael here. And I got my contact info on the screen. And we'll see if we have any questions.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it. Very, very good knowledge on the 18 invoice collection cost strategies. I'd like to say thank you to you for presenting the Anytime Collect by E2B Technologies. And also, if you have any questions, you can email or get in touch with James. His contact info is on the screen. And I will put my contact info up right now. You can also contact me with the information on the screen. And, thanks again, James. Great job. We truly appreciate it.
Excellent. I appreciate you guys sponsoring us today so we can get some of this information in your customers' hands. And just a reminder, if you're watching the webinar, whether it's today or you're watching the recorded version of this, reach out to Michael at Solution Systems. Tell them what you're looking for. They'll get a hold of us, and we'll work in tandem to see if we've got a solution for you. And no hard pressure sales. We're here to really help you get a handle on your AR and make life hopefully a little better for you.
Definitely, definitely. So thanks everybody for attending. We truly appreciate it. And thanks again, James.
Excellent. We'll talk to you soon, Michael. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.